Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Prince George's County Public Schools Board of Education Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group. I'm Pamela Boozer-Struther, and I'm the board member for District 3 and also chairing this work group on behalf of my board colleagues. I want to welcome all of the committee members today and also note that we have some very special guests from environmental justice organizations joining us, and they will be introduced soon. We have a couple of housekeeping items to take care of before we get into the substance of our meeting today. And at that point, I will turn the facilitation over to Alvita Addison and Joseph Jakuta, who will lead us through our panel discussion. So if everyone is in the board docs agenda, you'll see that we have our approval of our meeting minutes from our May 19th meeting. And I'd like to go ahead and get a motion for us to approve those.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you so much. The meeting minutes are approved. Next item is the adoption of the June 23rd, 2021 agenda. Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the June 23rd agenda.
Thank you. And I'll need a second. Thank you.
I second.
Appreciate it. The agenda is adopted. So for our guests watching this meeting, we have everything in a board docs agenda, which includes our standing item of the actual climate change action plan focus work group resolution and goals of this work group, so that if this is your first time joining us, you can review those documents to know our many-month charge of the many meetings we're having. This is the third of many mission areas that we will be covering in the coming months. At this point, I would like to turn the facilitation to Joseph Jakuta, who will review some items that we've been working on and also some new items. So thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you, Pamela. The first document we wanted to bring up is the guiding principles. We discussed this in our last meeting, and there were requests from, I believe it was Jamie and Dawn, to make some minor edits to deal with the situation of healthy buildings. So those edits were made, and the final draft of the guiding principles was sent around in an email from board member Boozer-Strother. And I wanted to make sure that there were no objections to that being the final document. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the second item, and that is the formation of sub-work groups. We've already kind of had an ad hoc sub-work group that has dealt with outreach, in particular with the student engagement effort we're going to hear from later in this meeting. And we wanted to sort of more formalize that process by having work group members sign up for specific sub-work groups that will meet on an ad hoc basis. This isn't going to be a regular, monthly meeting, but for any of these. But we do realize that some of the topics we're not able to. We need to address them outside of the main meeting to bring back, because there's just so much to discuss to put into these plans. So we're asking all the work group members to sign up, and I'm going to drop a link into the chat for the panelists only. So guests, no need to fill out this form, but for all the panelists, please do it when you get a moment. Just fill out which sub work groups you would like to participate in, and I'm going to ask that all documents we're discussing tonight and all feedback be in by July 1st, so we can make arrangements. Are there any questions on that? Oh, I think there's a question from Stacy. Ms. Hartwell.
Hi, good afternoon. I chair a committee of people who have interest in some of the committees that you have, the subcommittees that you have. Am I able to share this with them for them to engage?
Pamela, I will turn that over to you. How would you like to approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for raising that. At this point, we were looking at our, the work group members, but there certainly is expertise in some of these work groups that we're continuing to reach out beyond just the membership. So at this point, I would say maybe we could have a conversation about that after the meeting and consider, how that might best work. But actually, I think that's a great idea. It reminds me that I'm already beginning to see some opportunities for our students to already be coming together around these mission areas. And it would make sense that we would have community members who would like to engage sooner than later. So thank you for raising that. And let's keep talking about that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Are there any others before we move on? Okay. Reminder, July 1st, try and fill it out by then. We also sent around a spreadsheet of documents. The idea here is that we should start collecting materials that will get filtered into our climate action plan. I realize that everyone has access to lots of research and reports from their own work. So we sent around, when board member Boozer-Strother sent around her last email, there was a link to this. We're asking work group members to just, when they get a chance to add to it, put in information such as the title of the document, sort of what subsection it goes with, and a sentence or two about what it's about and why it's relevant for the climate action plan. So we understand. I started to put in some that I already had access to, or that various work group members had sent around already. So just add to it, as it's just supposed to be a living document so that we have access to this wealth of knowledge. Any questions on that one?
Joseph,
Yes.
you want us to add the sentence right into the document under the bullet point?
I think there was a column on the right.
Oh, okay.
And there's a few I think that's to add because I hadn't gotten to it yet. I'm going to try not to do that in the future. Okay. The last document that was sent around, this is an important one. This is a research request. The idea is that we want to not make too many requests of PGCPS staffs, but we do realize that we are going to need some information about certain aspects of the school system to provide good recommendations as part of our climate action planning. So a draft research request was sent around in the last email that board member Boozer-Strother sent. We're asking all work group members to try and review it and have feedback to me by July 1st. I would like to transmit the draft to Ms. Irwin soon after the July 4th holiday, so to give them the most time as possible to start to look at this information. It's request about what kind of buildings we have, what kind of buses, information about the grounds, and sort of stormwater related issues, about the food, sort of all the information that we're going to need to make a good plan. I also might be adding a little bit to it myself. I was also contacting Mike Hunninghake with this Environmental Finance Center at the University of Maryland, and he's provided some information that could be useful for using this data to also calculate a carbon footprint. So we'll want to make sure whatever we can is in that as well. Any questions about the research request? Okay, seeing none. Well, thank you so much. And I will turn it over to Ms. Addison, who will lead our panel discussion.
I was on mute. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alveda Addison. I have the pleasure and the privilege of moderating today's panel discussion. I want to thank Raymond and Valerie for their help putting together the panel. The purpose of the panel is to gather information about how Prince George's schools can best implement equitable climate policies. On our panel, we have representatives from various science and community organizations. First, we will have Mr. Abel Oliva. I will ask him to pronounce the name of his organization. Are you
Hello,
there?
everybody. Yes, I'm here. Defensores de la Cuenca.
Yeah, I had German and Latin in high school and college, so I couldn't manage to pronounce that. So please excuse me. Then we have Stacy Hartwell. She's representing the NAACP of Prince George's County. Emily Frias is representing the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, better known as CCAN. Jan Michael Archer is from the University of Maryland, go Terps. Senator Clarence Lamb is from the Maryland General Assembly. He will be joining us later on. We will begin with 4 to 5 minute introductions from each panelist, which will include information about themselves, their organization, and their organization's plans and activities to address the problem of climate change, including any insights for the school system. After the introductory statements, we will open the discussion to include the audience. To be respectful to the panelists and the audience, please use the Zoom hand raise feature to raise your hand or write your questions in the chat. We will begin with Mr. Oliva.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Addison, for the introduction. My name again is Abel Olivo. I'm the Executive Director for Defensores de la Cuenca, which means watershed defenders. We work to engage Latinos and Spanish speakers in watershed-related issues by creating opportunities for people to engage in nature, to have fun, family-friendly experiences that really help to make positive connections to the environment. And while we have folks there, we take the opportunity to share information about watershed, trees, nature, the positive benefits that we all can enjoy by being in nature and the environment, helping to increase knowledge around the role that water plays in our lives, stormwater issues, trees in our lives, and how that's connected to our health and our health outcomes. For communities of color, Latinos and Spanish speakers, Black African Americans, we tend to live in areas that have lower tree canopy than other neighborhoods that tend to have more stormwater runoff, that tend to be places with lower air quality, lower water quality. So working to make connections of our environment, our impact on the environment, and how we can positively change that helps to grow an understanding of the importance the environment plays in our lives. All with the intent or the goal of creating a larger network of Latinos and Spanish speakers to be involved, to be present, to be leading, and to be inviting others to participate with our programs and programming. We recognize that we're competing for people's time away from their family, time away from work, time away from church. So what we do and how we do it is working to address that that precious commodity in our experiences. We allow for space to people to have that spiritual religious connection, creation care, caring for our common home, and really give space for that to grow and to have other people express it. We also know that spending time with family is a valuable, is something very valuable for our community. And so we purposefully have family-friendly events, not just youth, not just kids, not just adults, because we need to create those opportunities for everyone in the family to grow and to learn. Especially important when we're talking about the Latino immigrant community, and an understanding of after school activities, for example, helping to raise the importance and the connections of the environment and health and opportunities to learn more, really from the parents' perspective, really helps the student gain additional access. If there's understanding about nature and the environment and the importance of that and the importance of learning more about it, the parents are more likely to allow their students to participate in these programs. Whereas normally it's come home, I need you to be in my sight, I need you to be with me, or perhaps I need you to take care of your brothers and sisters, which is a very common thing too. But if there's an increased understanding of the importance of that, there's more opportunity for people to grow in their understanding and knowledge of it. In terms of Ms. Addison, I'm not sure what additional information I was being asked to share, but generally speaking, it is important that we continue to grow and to create opportunities for more Latino community members to engage and grow in their understanding, as municipal governments install these resilient best management practices in our communities, and they start to kind of place these things in our community. We also need to invest in the people so that we can grow their understanding of why they're being put there and the importance of the value of them in terms of heat island effect. Without tree canopy, our communities are more susceptible to these extreme weather events. And from a dollars and cents perspective, the municipal government, if they don't invest in the people aren't going to necessarily know how to interact or take care of these BMPs, and therefore it's just additional burden costs for those elected folks. So in terms of environmental justice and equitable access, it is really important that we continue to create opportunities for people to engage in nature and the environment on their own terms. And let them experience it in a way that is familiar to them, and not just a very rigid, structured, English-centric, white-centric type of engagement. We need to be thinking about alternative ways, because in reality, the environment, it's everyone's job. And if we're only approaching it as one model, one solution, we're not going to reach the folks that we really need to be reaching. Those people who are most impacted, the communities that are most impacted, need to have additional considerations for those type of engagements and where we want them to be.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hartwell?
I'd like to thank Abel for that. That was very clarifying, and it really gave me a very good perspective on what your organization and where your organization is focused. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me here today, because it's so important for us to build alliance as we continue to do the work of the NAACP, especially around environmental and climate justice. Again, my name is Stacy Hartwell. I am the chair for environmental and climate justice for the NAACP Prince George's County branch. Our interests are representing not only our members, members, but also the BIPOC community. We are deeply involved, as you well know, with the NAACP around activism and engagement. Well, I mean, we have over 100 year history in this space, and our brand is very clear on what our direction is. For Maryland, for Prince George's County, Maryland, our engagement is focused on clean environment, planning and investment, and mitigation. So we have a proactive as well as a reactive arm of what we do. The next is career training and jobs creation in the environmental space. Our focus now is primarily around renewable energy, and then community engagement. The opportunity for us to share information with our community to help people understand the many facets of climate change is just, it's really huge. It's a huge opportunity, and there's a lot really that still has to be done. So we really do involve ourselves a lot with, sharing with our community just exactly how they can engage and what it means to them to have a focus on the environment. The next thing is political action. So in that space, we invest a lot of our energy and our time in understanding various pieces of legislation, who the players are, and just exactly how they can support the initiatives that will make a difference for the residents of Prince George's County. Last year, there were over 15 pieces of legislation in which we did research on, and we attempted to educate the community around what these pieces of legislation meant to them. We made this information available to people so that they would understand as they, start to make political decisions. And, especially with the elections that are coming up now and people are beginning to gear up, we're starting to focus on those people who are really making a difference, who are focusing on the issues that are most important to Prince George's County. We are an organization that we really take our lead from the community. We look to engage our community for them to tell us what is key and important to them. And then we share information that helps them support the goals in advancing their issues. So our engagement, again, is the clean environment, career training and jobs creation, community engagement, and political action. In a reactive sort of arena, and we're trying to really get our arms around this, is we have a geographic focus, and those areas are really hot spots. These are areas that we believe that need care and attention. Bladensburg and Hyattsville around industrial pollution, Brandywine, of course, issues around carbon emissions, coal-fired plants, construction, pollution, just their location and their exposure to carbon emissions. Eagle Harbor is another one of our area hotspots. There are issues there with stormwater runoff, issues with Pepco, et cetera, that we're engaged in supporting there. For our programs and initiatives, we in August of 2020, we launched the Maryland Solar Equity Initiative. This is a coalition initiative that involves coalition partners as well as our HBCUs. We are very focused. I mean, we have the premier HBCU here in Prince George's County, Bowie State University. So the Solar Equity Initiative focused on community awareness around families and businesses for rooftop solar, for community solar, and also for jobs training. We are very much involved in scholarships for training. We work with our community partner Grid Alternatives. We provide scholarships to students so that they can understand careers in renewable energy. We had 10 registrants where we paid this training class is like $1,600 a person. We were able to register 10 students to participate in this training, and we paid for the scholarships for those students who attended. We also are we just launched, along with the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, our internship program. I don't know how many people had a chance to look at our website, but we have an internship program where we have a comprehensive training program where we engage students on, taking what they're learning in school and applying it to community action. We had 2 interns that were dedicated to environmental and climate justice, and we engaged in activities around community awareness for activism, identifying other young leaders who were involved in, remedying some of the issues that are facing our community. And that program was endorsed by Dr. Robert Orr at the University of Maryland. He has since asked us to expand that program, and we're going to be working with them to do even more to engage more students. We would like to have this roll over to Bowie State University, and we're working with the Entrepreneurship Academy so that we can engage more students there. Again, we're focused on really training and engagement for our HBCU students. So that's all under the Maryland Solar Equity Initiative. And then the next is climate justice is racial justice. That is our neighborhoods, environment, and health focus. And this year we focus on issues around transportation. As you know, under the Obama administration, Maryland was given over $1 billion to address transportation infrastructure areas, and that money was taken away from the city centers that were dependent upon that money. So we focus very much on trying to get legislation passed around transportation. The final area of focus, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is around legislative initiatives and various legislation that's before our lawmakers in Annapolis. One of our biggest focus for this year is the constitutional amendment for environmental rights. We believe that that piece of legislation really transcends all types of legislation and really is like the tide that lifts all ships. So we're really focused on that for this legislative session that's coming up. Our next big initiative that we're working on are community gardens. We're working on establishing community gardens through the school system with our schools so that we can not only educate our children around the importance of, having access to healthy food, and we're also focused on distribution for this healthy food. So we are looking at different models right now so that we can begin to initiate, like I said, a community garden focus. The University of District of Columbia has 17 acres in Beltsville. And we're looking at what we can do to partner with them, as well as, like I said, local schools, either junior high schools or high schools, for providing this type of food equity training and awareness, starting with our young people. The final thing that we're working on and we're very excited about is that we have a STEAM program that is it's an art and poetry slam that we're organizing with some other community partners, in particular the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And we are looking at being able to provide scholarships for students who are focused on a career path or an education path.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry, Siri. Now for this art and poetry slam for high school and college students that are focused on environmental careers in the environment. So those are 3 of the things that we're really focused on now for this coming year.
Well, thank you. That sounds wonderful.
So
great job. Great job. Wow. You're doing a lot there. We're actually going to have the CCAN representative, Emily, if you could provide information about your organization and your plans.
Thank you so much, Alvita. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Frias. I'm the Maryland Grassroots Coordinator at Chesapeake Climate Action Network. Just before I move on to myself, I want to just give a huge shout out to Stacy. I got to work with Stacy a little bit on the last year. And I also happen to know that Stacy does a lot of that amazing work in her personal time. So I know a lot of us do that, but I really want to particularly acknowledge that Stacy has become an expert on her own time. And that's just very commendable. And we really appreciate everything you do, Stacy. So I work with Chesapeake Climate Action Network. We are a small nonprofit based in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. We've primarily focused historically on state level climate legislation in Richmond and Annapolis. I actually was just putting together a presentation for our new members, and we were founded in 2002, 4 years before An Inconvenient Truth came out. So I kind of like to say we were talking about climate before it was cool. And really the public consciousness was just not there on the issue. So I'm really learning more about the history of our organization and how much of a struggle it has been to get climate to be as hot of a conversation topic as it is now, where I think something like 76% of Americans are now aware of and believe that climate change is a problem. That has not always been true. So we've primarily, like I said, focused on state and local and now federal legislation as a means for addressing the systemic issue of climate change. Because we feel that really, if we're going to tackle the problem at this scale, we need to tackle the largest possible means for addressing it in a holistic way. So we've had a lot of really amazing wins on clean energy, expansion of clean energy. We've a big campaign that we are most well known for, that we actually have a white paper on, was our involvement in the fracking campaign to ban fracking legislatively here in Maryland. We were really one of the leaders in that. Shout out especially to Brooke Harper for being really the top organizer, if those of you who know Brooke Harper. So that has really been our approach, and I'm really grateful that my job in particular is connecting those legislative advocacy opportunities with grassroots everyday folks, and that has been a really amazing thing to see. All of the grassroots leaders across the state who, like Stacy, like others, really take this on. And we really attribute our success to being able to mobilize large groups of everyday folks and do that education and really impress upon legislators the number of people that this issue really affects. So to go from there in terms of our upcoming plans, I mean, we're really thinking as big as possible. We've also we know that there needs to be a major, I mean, in Hogan's last climate plan, there was basically no mention of environmental justice or equity at all. We don't have the infrastructure in the state. There's both a resource and a research gap in terms of really understanding the problems of environmental justice, of climate justice in the state of Maryland. It has not been a consideration in climate plans to date. So that is something that we really know we need to address. At the same time, we need to be going for the most ambitious goals that are possible for our state to achieve in terms of really cutting down those emissions and tackling jobs. So that was something that our policy last legislative session, the Climate Solutions Now Act, sought to begin to address. But we know that we can go bigger and bolder than that. So I can't say exactly what our legislative plans are for the next session, but I know that we're working in a really large community of partners to make sure that the goals are right, are inclusive of the voices that need to be there while we're making those plans. It's enough of the siloed, segregated climate movement that needs to be a thing of the past. And that means also owning the work of making sure that the climate movement is an anti-racist movement, making sure that, those 101 conversations are happening in a systematized way, that those of us that have access to maybe well-intentioned but segregated white communities, white voices, are taking on doing that education and making the climate movement an inclusive movement and a safe movement for everybody to be a part of. So that's the role I hope that we're able to really take on in the next year, and come together around policy priorities that really address these issues and really work for everybody. In terms of recommendations to schools and students, I'm really, really proud to say that I've worked with some amazing students, especially in the last year. There's actually, I want to give a shout out to the Mary Perg Student Climate Action Coalition. So they are a group of university students they're a coalition of university students. They have representation at every public university in Maryland, including all of our HBCUs, including everyone. And so they're a coalition of about 200 students, and they put together their own policy. They put together a bill called the Future Act, which had a goal of getting public universities to net zero carbon emissions by 2035. So that worked really beautifully with our top priority policy. I did mention the main goal was to get to net zero emissions by 2045, and then their policy just dovetailed beautifully with that. So I got to work really closely with them. And I mean, I don't know what I was doing in college. It wasn't that. They're a really incredible group of kids, and even calling them kids sounds patronizing. Like they're young adults who are really doing amazing work. So I would want to say to students, even though maybe you're not voting yet, that doesn't mean that you don't. That's not the only means of political expression. Okay, you can organize. You have that agency. You might not realize it yet. You might need some skill ups, but young people, no social movement in history succeeded without young people, right? And you have power, and I think it's just it's realizing it and getting organized and making plans and sticking to them and seeing them through, and you can do a lot. So I love to do education with students. That is also an area that CCAN is growing, and we do offer trainings and all kinds of things in that regard. I also want to shout out that we do have, it's on our website right now, we do have an HBCU fellowship that is paid. So if you are an HBCU student watching this, we definitely highly encourage you to attend. That's another really good way to get some, that person would be working directly with me, really learning the organizing tools that I use. So we really want to enable you. that is what I hope that CCAN can do, and that I think students should feel empowered to do. Okay.
Thank you so much. Senator Lamb is here. Are you still available to speak?
Yeah, I am.
Great.
Happy to chime in. Is there anything, I know I missed the beginning first few minutes, anything specifically you would like me to cover as part of my introduction, or I can just kind of give a preview? I think most folks have been talking about, what they see coming down the pike when it comes to environmental justice and climate change.
Well, yeah, especially as it pertains to the schools and any legislation you think that about climate change that we need to support.
Yeah, so happy to speak about that. So I'm Clarence Lamb, the state senator in District 12, which includes parts of Howard and Baltimore counties. And this issue is very near and dear to me too. I'm a physician. I'm on faculty at Johns Hopkins. I specialize in preventive medicine and public health. Obviously, with the pandemic these days, this is a very busy field. But I think when it comes to public health, why I have an interest in it is because environmental health plays such a tremendous part of people's, of climate change and health as well, that I think a lot of folks don't realize how much the environment actually impacts actual people. And I think that's been a real tough part about trying to make it real for the general public and for the community, and where students like yourself can have a tremendous impact in being able to convey that to the general public and people in your neighborhoods too, that some of the greatest challenges we see is that there's oftentimes a bit of a generational divide. And I think to the students, I think you see and recognize the importance of climate change because it's your future, and recognize that that over the last few decades there hasn't been the greatest stewardship of the climate and of the environment, and that's why climate change has become as much of a concern as it is now. The state has really tried to address some of the shortcomings of this, but there's still a lot of distance to go when it comes to progress along these lines. The state does have a climate change commission. It has been, active and working and providing some top level guidance and suggestions and policy and regulatory guidance too, to help address some of the areas in the state where we can improve in addressing climate shortfalls. There's also been an Commission on Environmental Justice and Sustainable Communities. So environmental justice, I know, is an important piece, and that commission has been kind of dormant over the last couple of years. And so last year we did pass legislation to help revive and help make the commission more active in addressing and stepping forward on some of these climate change issues and also policy recommendations. Some of the challenges that we've seen in Annapolis is that, and this is maybe where students and other advocates can help us too, is that climate change initiatives oftentimes run into organized labor and challenges with where union leadership are viewing certain policies. And so I think within kind of the progressive and democratic views and electorate, these issues have kind of divided us in a way where, we would like to have organized labor on our side. We would like to have union support on some of these initiatives. And yet, oftentimes they're not aligned with some of where the climate change activists and advocates are at. And so we've tried to find areas of alignment. That's where I think, we could use the help of this audience and others to find areas where we can find common ground and can work together in lockstep towards advancing good policies that help organized labor as well as help the environment. And so, I think that's an ongoing challenge that we're going to continue to see and probably see for the near term. I think for the students too, being able to make climate change real to the public is really critically important. I think a lot of people in the public see climate change as a very abstract concept, and they think of, ice sheets melting or polar bears on, floating out in the middle of the ocean, where they don't see the actual immediate impact to them, their community, those that are their neighbors. And I think the students can really make an impact in, hitting home some of these core messages that climate change that affects people's health, that we know that there's increased rates of asthma and other upper respiratory conditions as a result of that. We are seeing, how climate can impact, how transportation and climate, for example, are interrelated.
Okay, is he frozen?
In climate and
Yes.
food systems where, can you hear me now?
Okay, you
Can you hear me now?
froze for like 2 minutes. Can you kind of start over on your last statement?
Sure. Yeah, I think the students can really be helpful in making climate change real to their local communities. That, I think it's lost on a lot of the general public when they think about climate change. They think of things very abstract, like ice sheets melting or polar bears on icebergs floating out in the middle of the ocean. But I think for us, where it really hits home is when you look at climate change and health. We know that they're in upper respiratory conditions like asthma. Know that climate and transportation is directly intertwined too, and we know
Okay, he seems to have a really bad connection. Senator Lamb? Senator Lamb? I think we're going to move on.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Barely. You keep freezing for some reason. I can't hear you again. Okay. All right, I think we're going to move on to the University of Maryland, Mr. Jan Michael Archer.
Thanks, Alvita. Hello, everyone. I'm really humbled and grateful to be a part of the conversation here. A lot of what we do here at the Center for Community Engagement, Environmental Justice and Health, SIEGE for short, is kind of act as a relay or as a path through connecting, whether it's frontline community members to legal resources, or to legislative resources, to academic resources, to government resources. We kind of we're kind of are located as a state entity in a pretty good space to connect resources and leverage the power, the institutional power and the systemic power that we carry through the university system, and make sure it makes its way to community members. And so I honestly don't have too much to add, because I feel like everyone who has come before me here tonight has really spoken not only their truths, but the truth with where the rubber meets the road for climate justice. I will just add, with regards to education, we capitalize on a framework called the community-based participatory research model. And basically what that does is it centers research around communities and really works through this concept of science empowerment. So not empowerment with an EM, empowerment. This is a term that my advisor, the director of the center, Dr. Jacoby Wilson, came up with, in terms of where there's already power within community members, within frontline communities, but that power has been eroded or stripped away in different categories and kind of disconnected from the community members. So what we try to do is bring out that power, return the power that's already within and inherent within community members and community leaders. And we do that through technical assistance. We do that through education. A lot of what we do, especially in the education sphere, is providing kind of informational tools, informational literature and infographics and resources and materials to teachers, to community leaders, to advocates, to help kind of simplify some of these overarching broad concepts. When we're talking, the senator was talking about environmental health and respiratory illnesses, and we try to bring it down to food, family, faith, health, and jobs, and tie all there is to climate justice definitely impacts each of those: food, faith, family, health, and jobs. And so we bring out those connections and see what's relevant to the community at hand and what they're interested in, and then make the connection there. So I'm excited to get into it. So I don't want to hold up anything more with my introduction. Oh, but my name is pronounced Yan.
You said what? Your name is what?
It's pronounced Yan Michael Archer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, and I knew that. I've pronounced it before. You have an event coming up though, right?
Thank you. Yes, we have our annual Environmental Justice Symposium coming up on the third weekend of August. That's the 19th through the 21st, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And what this is it's a convening mostly of DMV topics, but it's a convening to talk about for community members, for government officials, for educators, for academics, anyone who touches on environmental justice, climate justice, equity issues, to come and learn from each other, pick up some new skills. We have workshops, we have panel discussions, and so yes, that's going to be happening, and I can drop some links for that in the chat. Thank you.
And what are you doing for the senior citizens?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got a project list that's like miles long. One thing that's really exciting that we've been able to do is partner with AARP on a digital divide project that also encompasses community science. So we train older adults. I think the enrollment for the program is 50 and above, so not really old. Where do you even draw that line? But we train older adults on how to use social media and kind of some basic web navigation things. But more importantly, we've developed this tool called the Community Block Engagement Tool, or the Walk the Block, or My Block Counts. And what that is a little handheld tool that, it's a mobile phone app where you can go out and you can record potholes, sidewalk infrastructure, green space access, a whole range of topics. And what you're doing is creating a record where there previously may not have been one of your lived experience in this community, of what you have available, whether it's salutogenic, which is, you know, health promoting, or whether it's pathogenic, which is health reducing. And what you can do when you have those results, you can bring that to your legal aid or your legislators, and say, these are the issues that we want to work on. And you didn't have to filter it through an academic or any other organization. You collected that data yourself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. University of Maryland is really a big part of educating our community. Now we will begin with the question and answer session. We are going to ask everyone to raise their hands using the Zoom function or put your questions in the chat. We will lead with a question from Joseph to get the conversation started.
Thank you, Ms. Addison. The first question we wanted to ask you today, panelists, is what's the best way we can reach out to your community in regards to climate change, in particular with how it affects the schools and how the schools can best combat climate change? And I know that Senator Lamb has to leave early, so I'm hoping you might be able to address the question first.
Sure, happy to do that. Thanks, Joseph. You know, I think the students have a really important voice to be able to speak to what they see as a future that they're going to be living in, and making that real and apparent for my colleagues in the legislature. I think, you know, we've had student groups, and I'm not sure of the age groups of the audience here, but we had students from even from middle school recently come to advocate for certain bills before our committee. I serve on the Senate Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. They had worked as part of a school project to examine, I think it was tar sealants that are used in driveways. And as part of their studies, you know, as part of their classroom project, actually did some research into the harmful environmental impacts of how these tar sealants would wash into the bay, could lead to cancer in some people that were exposed to it, and other health harms. And they actually worked with a few legislators to be able to bring forward a bill that they came to testify during session. And they did a lot of the work reaching out to stakeholders, even communicating with those who may be communicating in advance with those who may be opposed to this legislation, some from the business community, et cetera, to work through and try to find some ways to be able to advance this legislation. And like many pieces of legislation that go through Annapolis, it oftentimes takes more than 1 year. So that classroom actually, I think, came back and passed the project along to the next teacher the following year. And roughly the same group of students came forward again to advocate for that bill. And last year, they actually got the bill passed. So, you know, I think that's just a simple example of how, you know, students, because they have a strong voice and really, you know, the ability to kind of coalesce issues that give us clarity on the direction we should go in, and speak from that kind of voice of clarity and where the future is going to be, you know, can have an outsized impact on advocating for legislation that we oftentimes forget. And so I want to encourage the audience here to keep that in mind when you're working on different issues and looking at how you can make an impact in the legislature.
Can we hear from Ms. Hartwell?
I didn't know if I was supposed to raise my hand or what, but you know, what our experience showed us during our first cohort of interns, and this is from, again, the School of Public Policy, the University of Maryland. We had capstone students as well as student interns. Our kids are really smart. I think that if we give them the platform, they can lead us. I think what's important is that we provide the wisdom. We provide them with the strategy. And if we empower them to go ahead and implement the tactics, I think that we will begin to engage more of them, and it will be more important to them. I think that a lot of, like I said, they're smarter than what you think. I mean, they are very much in tune. They have access to data unlike many generations before, and we really need to respect that in our young adults. So I really think to reach out, number one, to incentivize them. At the University of Maryland, the kids were given a stipend, as well as some of them were given college credit. So there's got to be something in it for them. And don't look at that as being something that's a bad thing. No, I think, they deserve it. They work so hard. And the contributions that they make, especially in around social media and being able to galvanize their peers, is indispensable. And I think we need to provide more platforms for them to be able to engage. That's why we focus on our high school students who are, going on and, advancing their careers, not just in college, but also, in the trades. But I think we just really need to empower them. We need to respect them, and we need to give them the wisdom, provide the strategy or the framework in which they should work. And I was just ever amazed at the things we were able to accomplish when we had that partnership with them. So that really is my recommendation, or our recommendation, around engaging the young adults in our community.
Okay, one of the things we need to do is also engage the parents, because the parents are the people who are going to really be able to push this also. And we need for them to vote. So how do we also engage adults in your communities? Ms. Hartwell, do you want to start?
I didn't know if the moderator was going to call on me. That's why I raised my hand. So,
okay.
You know what? Again, I'm going to go back to the intern, because that was a really positive experience for us to engage with the University of Maryland. It was really great. And that's why Dr. Orr really wants to grow it throughout, the School of Education, the School of Health. And we have a platform. And Jan, I want to reach out to you about doing that work. But anyway, we found more than anything that our the young people were the ones that brought this information back to their homes. They were the ones who inspired their parents. And through that, their parents became more engaged. Now, at the NAACP, we have a different kind of approach, because we also have members. So we are driven by members too. But I think through engaging our youth, we were able to solidify just exactly how we needed parents to engage. And they were a very important part of the education process for parents, for adults.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we get everyone. So Mr. Olivo, can you possibly, and we'll get to the other people who have raised their hands too.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo Ms. Hartwell's point in terms of approach, very similar to ours, we work to engage the families, to give them a base level of knowledge, to then take that and apply it to their own situation. Me as a fourth generation Chicano from Ohio, who's English dominant, has a different idea or perspective from a recent arrival who is Spanish dominant, who lives in a highly urban area. So working to give people a base knowledge of the environment, nature, its impact, our connection, and then allowing them to apply that to their own situation, to their own communities, to their own churches, to their own country of origin, and how they relate to it is super important in terms of being able to make it, relatable, relevant to their lives, and to work to engage the parents. One of the things that we and I see Ramon Palencia on here, who is super involved and has been for many years in Langley Park and in Prince George's County and in many communities, engaging people, the community on various topics, and people approaching him with ideas and goals, and they're wanting him to like just snap and bring those people to a hearing, to bring them to testify, bring them to like share their ideas. And it's much more than that. You can't take someone from zero to advocate in no time flat. You have to invest in the community with resources, with time, with dollars. You have to compensate them, because missing 2 or 3 hours of work to come to a meeting, that's groceries, that's rent, that is real impact. And for the communities that need to be at the table, we need to think about that and consider that. So Yan said this, and the previous speaker, all these factors need to be considered and taken into account when we're working to bring people to the table, add their voices, really build up that leadership network. There's so many considerations that we need to think about in that.
Thank you. Emily?
I was on mute. There we go. Just also to echo Stacy's point, I just want to again, shout out that example of the Mary Perk Student Climate Action Coalition. I mean, again, this is a group of students that came up with their own legislation. They didn't need me to do that. They had guidance from Marilyn Perg, as well as CCAN and others to kind of help them engage on like how does the rubber actually meet the road, and learn that those kind of experiences from us. But like it wasn't that they didn't need the idea. Just to really echo Stacey's point. And then I think when it comes to adults, I do think that engaging with students is a really great pathway to adults. I know that just to speak to my own personal experience, when I was in high school and I learned about climate change, I brought that information home, and it changed my mother's attitude on it. So I've seen that in my personal life. And then also I think, I want to reference a DSA campaign. That's something else I'm involved with. I know that, if the issue of climate isn't quite resonant, there's a lot of ways to either narrow the target or narrow the issue, and kind of bring it into more sharper focus. So I think a really good example of that was the We Power campaign in DC. And there was a rate increase being proposed by the PSC of DC, the Public Service Commission, and that was a really, really great entry point for a lot of people into that campaign, where they were talking about a very specific issue about utility regulation, and it really was relevant to people's self-interest. But that served as a launching point for greater consciousness raising and kind of building that into a broader theory of change that was being well articulated by that campaign about ultimately democratic, energy democracy as a concept, and how that's so intersectional with climate and everything. So I think meeting people where they are, narrowing the issue where appropriate, but always thinking about organizing as opposed to just mobilizing, right? Like mobilizing is, can you basically with the people that already agree with you about, can you come to this, can you show up on this thing? Whereas organizing is sort of, can you get involved in this project? Can we shape reality together? And that takes some more being able to kind of articulate that broader theory of change to people in your campaign, and meeting people where they are, as a place to start.
Thank you. How about you, Yan?
Sure. And again, I'm coming in on the last bit just to kind of dip in and dip out, because I feel like most of the impact has already been said. One piece that I want to add, though, is the power of intergenerational projects and connections. And so building projects or building activities building opportunities in ways that students can go to their parents for answers, to really key in on what's called in a lot of different ways, whether you're calling it traditional ecological knowledge, which is a term that comes from indigenous studies and indigenous peoples, or you're talking about the lived experiences of people. Both students, parents, grandparents, everyone has very valid and meaningful lived experiences. So draw out those connections, and we do that in ways through that project that I mentioned through the AARP project. We also do that in ways by doing things called an activity called Photovoice, where we engage all participants we're actually going out to Federalsburg on the Eastern Shore to do this with a group called Men for Change, which is a Black male youth mentorship program. And working with the mentors and the mentees to go out and actually go into their communities and take pictures of what they're seeing and talk about it amongst their pair, and then bringing it back to the broader group and having a broader group discussion about it. It's incredibly not just useful, it's incredibly powerful to really draw out these intergenerational connection, and not just powerful or useful, it's important, and it's almost necessary, because climate change, the youth might have inherited the climate as it is today, but they're not the only ones impacted by it, and they're definitely not the ones that brought it about. So we need to have that not backward looking, but looking back and looking forward approach to things.
That's great. Great advice. Great advice. Jamie Alston, you have a question?
Good afternoon, all. Not a question, just a comment to share that we're grateful that we've had the opportunity to have 20 plus of our Prince George's County Public School students as well as educators to participate in partnership with our county's Office of Sustainable Energy and PEPCO and the National Energy Education Development Project, NEED project, with Energizing Student Potential. And like many have already spoken, a couple of years ago, we had some outstanding presentations and debates where students discussed important environmental real-time issues amongst themselves and came up with decisions to represent certain areas. And they also built replicas that were on display at Charles Herbert Flowers High School. And it was just a really dynamic opportunity, and to hear how these students were well engaged and well informed, very articulate, having discussions about real life issues. We had 20 plus, as I said, 20 plus schools to participate this year. We've been doing this for the past 4 years. We've also had some students and schools to win awards because this program, the NEED project, it extends also to projects at the University of Maryland in College Park. We also went to Drexel University, as well as Chicago, the Illinois Institute of Technology. So they've really been a great partner with us at Prince George's County Public Schools, and we've had a lot of fantastic participation with not only the students, but also the educators.
I'm sorry, ma'am, will you share your name again, please?
Yes, I'm Jamie Alston with Prince George's County Public Schools. I am not a teacher. I work with the facilities division, and I work with utilities and energy management.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I think we have some questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. I have been, okay.
Yeah, I can ask, this is Kate. I can ask my question that I put in the
Okay.
chat. I was just wondering if the panelists could expand a little bit more about some of the challenges that are predominant in the school system related to environmental and health equity.
Sure. So one thing that I can put forth is food insecurity. And this is not my wheelhouse per se, but thanks to things like our symposium, I'm able to learn about kind of the issues at hand. So food insecurity is a big issue, and it was incredible. It blew me away how throughout the pandemic, school personnel and administrators and were able to kind of keep those resources flowing as much as they could, to families in need and students in need. But coming from I think of food deserts and food swamps and food insecurity in kind of a broader picture of how that impacts your ability to focus, how it impacts your ability not just to focus, but it impacts your priorities and decision making. And ultimately, when thinking, again, kind of going back to the environmental health lens that Senator Lamb put forth, we're not ever exposed to just one isolated toxin or stressor, okay? And so when you have students they're supposed to be in a learning environment where they're supposed to be able to not just intake knowledge, but process that knowledge and act on that knowledge, the cumulative effect of food insecurity, of air pollution, of not having enough green space and access to green space, those compound and compound and compound, and they lead to poor educational outcomes, poor test scores, poor self-esteem, and so I think to avoid kind of rambling, an acute one being food insecurity, but thinking holistically about how these different stressors interact is a key issue.
Thanks for that response. Here is a question. What environmental and health equity issues have the panelists seen are most predominant in the school system? Okay, do we have any panelists that want to take that question?
I think that was Kate's question.
Oh, she already asked that? I've been reading I've been reading the chat and not listening. Okay, another question is, one person wants to hear more about the Photovoice sounds. She says she really thinks that's innovative.
Sure, and I'd be happy to share some literature and share some examples in the chat. But it's really is a transformational process. Before even I came to the University of Maryland and started looking at it, using it as an equity-based tool. I was exposed to it through a project that Blue Water Baltimore did in Baltimore, with regards to stormwater infrastructure and with regards to disorder and kind of decay in row houses in West Baltimore. And basically what it allows people to do is it empowers them, and these are people who may not have traditionally been trained or might not be very strong communicators through writing or through speaking, but they can they know what they're seeing. And so it gives them the opportunity to develop what they're seeing, and literally through a photo, develop what they're seeing, take a photo, and provide their caption of it, provide their process of the story that they're trying to tell. So much of what we're doing with equity and so much of what we're doing with the climate movement is telling our stories. So it gives you another avenue, another resource in telling that story, sharing it with the world. So it's photos and focus groups. That's really as simplistic as it gets. And I can drop some links about how it's used in a climate justice and environmental justice context. Sure.
Another question, how do you feel about school bus transportation in the future of climate change?
Do you just, I'll chime in and share a thought.
Okay.
I've been in the renewable energy space now for the past 6 years, and it is clear that we are moving toward an electric future. So as we can, and we start to renew and we start to upgrade our school infrastructure, which of course transportation is a huge part, I really see the migration toward adopting EVs for transportation. The contribution that these vehicles make to carbon emissions is immense, and the one clear way to move forward is to, like I said, adopt an electric future and to move toward electrification for vehicles.
Thank you. Donald Bell, you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering how each of the panelists, you all mentioned wonderful solutions that your different organizations are working on. What is your capacity as an entity or organization to work with educators within the school system to either align the goals of some of the projects that you're working on, or align them with school system projects, right? So that we can push some of these initiatives within our schools. I'm an educator with the William Schmidt Center, which is our outdoor and environmental education center. And so I'm already thinking about some different ways that we could potentially collaborate, but and so I just like to learn a little bit more about how you think you could leverage, whether you're working with volunteers or members or professors or students, like your different bases, such that we can push some innovation within the grade levels.
Okay. Yan, do you have a response to that, or is your hand up from previous?
I do have a response. So I'll just say quickly that we love to bring on, I think, high school. We've had ninth graders, and no one younger than ninth graders, but we love to bring on high school interns for our projects to give them research experience in what we do and across all of the different things that we do, whether it's kind of really serious kind of toxicology, environmental health stuff, or if it's policy and outreach, legislative and work and that kind of stuff. So that's something that we've been doing for a while, and we will keep doing. Another thing that we do is partner with specific teachers at schools. I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, but we've met some friction in going through kind of, other than working with individual teachers, with regards to doing some air quality monitoring. But we provide, air quality sensors and give teachers the opportunity to work with their students on air quality monitoring projects and go out to their bus lanes and see, okay, there's a bus idling over there. What's the pollution that it's putting out? What kind of pollution? Is it VOCs? Is it charging? And so we love doing those sorts of projects. As Stacy mentioned, compensation is key. You have to incentivize these things. And we're at a point right now where we can't offer too many monetary incentives. And I think there's also some gray area with incentive that the university kind of puts on us with regards to doing this kind of incentivization with minors. But we are able to do, college recommendation letters, provide mentorship. We're able to resume workshops, anything that we can do to help develop these young minds and develop these students into leaders.
Thank you. Mr. Olivo?
Yes, I just kind of put this in the chat. We work with schools in a club model, and like an after-school club model, to bring that extra curricular activity, pairing workshops with hands-on activities, making it fun, parents, students, siblings. One of the schools that we work with, we were able to get secure funds to get everyone a backpack, and every week that they participated, they got a fun tool. Like one week they got a hammock. Trees provide so much to us, but recreation, we enjoy them. We did, field guides, we did binoculars, we did little measuring tapes, and every little tool that we equip them with is an opportunity for them to investigate, to look, to explore, to connect. So just, allowing them, equipping our participants to undertake those things, and also thinking about it in ways of not just the science, but like art, like let's think of, raise consciousness about our trees and the environment. We asked the participants, our students, to think of their favorite outdoor space, and just kind of close your eyes and envision that, and then start to think about what you want that to look, or what it looks like. So draw it without trees, draw it without bushes and shrubs and all that stuff. And it's very bleak and stark. And then we talk about trees and the role of trees and the importance that they play, and creating oxygen, cleaning the atmosphere, stormwater runoff, etc. Then afterwards, we go back and ask them to put the trees in. So just, engaging different art, science, literature, equipping them, giving resources. And that's, one of the things that we do in the club model.
Thank you. Emily, you are the last response. Where did you go?
Here I am.
Okay.
So I'm just shout out to you, Donald, for getting your students engaged. It's makes a huge impact. I want to say, so I went to Baltimore Polytechnic, and it was actually a teacher there that we did a school-wide screening of An Inconvenient Truth. This is in Baltimore City, right? So we were like, oh, this is about us. Like, we're gonna be really at the forefront of this. Yeah, it was really, really impactful. So just don't underestimate your ability as an educator to really shape somebody's whole career. But I want to say I've actually gone back to Baltimore Polytechnic and spoken to students a lot. We're always happy to come to a classroom and discuss kind of what's going on in the policy world and why that stuff is important, and like, who are your legislators. I've set up lobby meetings between high schoolers and their legislators. That can be really educational and impactful for both the students and the legislator. So, and that's something that we definitely, we're always interested in doing that, and making that as an enriching an experience for the students as possible. So if that's something that you were interested in, I'm super happy to talk to you about it. But yeah, I would say that, so that's mostly our means of interacting with students is kind of the political process, and education and interaction with that.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who attended the meeting, the panelists, and the audience. We invite you to peruse our website to get the most updated information on our meetings and activities. Please enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right.
The goals, the Prince George's Student Environmental Alliance.
Thank you.
We still have a little more in the meeting for those in the work group.
Okay, can we stop recording, or do we still record?
Yeah, we're still going in the meeting, and
Okay.
of course our guests are welcome to stay. And I took a ton of notes and so appreciative, and I see Ms. Hartwell is still with us, that we can collaborate together. I already have specific ideas, and if you hear me coming back with a walk and bike to school day and every day, that is one connection I'm really seeing of how we can work on that together, because all of our buses could be electric, but when we have hundreds of cars coming to our schools every day, driving through our communities, and our teachers standing in the exhaust for 30 minutes twice a day, that's just right there in the ground issue with students and parents, that I was hearing sort of a thread where we may be able to get to some of that real life experience that I was hearing everyone speak to. Like, we've got to get to some of that. Just to, so again, thank you all so much. And just a couple housekeeping things where I'm very excited. Our website is about to launch. We're going to review it here. And if there's no if no one sees any glaring issues, it can be, we will say go live. But we're about to show you a walkthrough video of that website. David's going to put that on the screen.
Pamela, real quick, I think Stacy had wanted to say something real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stacy.
First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I see that you're still recording, but I just wanted to know whether or not there was a way for us to be able to connect with some of the panelists afterwards. I don't know if there's a distribution list or something like that, but there were a lot of really great ideas, some people that we really would like to more weave in our work with. And if there's a way to do that, maybe I'll reach out to the person who invited me and maybe they could tell me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
We're happy, but I think all the work group members have, said it's okay to share, to continue the work. So yes,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. It was really great. And I'll let you continue with your meeting and have a good evening.
Thank you.
So are you ready, Pam?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So this is the preview for the website that Max and IT are working on. Let me make this bigger. And can you guys hear that?
We don't hear the sound.
Hold on, let me. Where is it? Can you hear it? Let me see why it's not sharing. Hold on. Try it again.
Is the share computer sound?
Yep, I got it.
This is a quick tour of the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Workgroup website. Here we start off with the homepage, which has a graphic from the flyer, the summary statement, a link to the Green School program, and we have a link here that says learn more about the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Workgroup. And if we click on that, it jumps down the page and it gives you links to our workgroup members, which was provided, and here it is, that list. It also gives you links to the resolution from the Board of Education and from the implementation plan, also from Board of Education meeting. As you go farther down the site from that top of it, you'll see that I titled this How PGCPS is Taking Action on Climate Change. I grouped together three things: the Green School program, the geothermal heat pump section, and the rooftop solar stations. And on each one of these is expanded as an accordion, and you can click on that and it shows from the Green School program. And I linked right to the Green School site. So we won't take care of the list of schools, but actually they list it already on their site. If it comes up here in a second, there it is. There's all our schools listed and they take care of that. So it's good for you and good for me. And then links to the Green School program. I include the news releases we've had for the past 3 years for PGCPS leading the state in Green School certifications. Geothermal heat pumps. These next two sections, I took the quote from Wikipedia, but we can always, if you want to have someone rewrite that or into something that maybe is a little more understandable. But I took that as the official source for what a geothermal heat pump is. And then I linked to the schools with those pumps. Same thing with the solar panels. Here is what a rooftop PV power station is from Wikipedia. And here's a list of the schools that have those. For the next section, we have our past meetings, which I listed. I embedded the videos and they've had a meeting summary, agenda, and documents. I linked to those also. These are links that go right to those things. So you'll see that goes out to document and whatever you've provided in your summary. We've done that. And that so far is the website. Now, I know you have a plan somewhere that's in draft format. I did not link that, but if you're ready for that, we can always do that. Thanks very much.
And so that is the preview from Max. And I'll also drop the link in the chat so that you can have it to review on your own as well. But once Pamela and the committee approve what is here, then Max will make it live, and then we can go in and plug and update things on the website.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. That was really nice of Max to provide that video overview and help us get through that. If there's any immediate feedback, Jamie?
Just wanted to say thanks, David, and thanks to Max. I know he's not here. One note I wanted to make for the solar PV sites, at least 3 of them, those being Glenarden Woods Elementary School, Greenbelt Middle School, and Oxon Hill High School. We have not yet officially launched the quote unquote ribbon cutting for those schools. So I thought that would be an important note to not exclude our executive leadership and blindside them. COVID interfered with a lot of that. And so I don't know when that date will appear, but I thought it would be important to note because they have not actually had the ribbon cutting ceremony as was thought to have taken place. The construction began in the summer of in July of 2019. And again, of course, we lost all of 2020 with COVID. Yeah. So I wanted to make that note officially. And number 2, I was wondering, is there any way to engage some of the students with the website, on the website, and if that's permissible, that's all. And to kind of give them to kind of navigate it, kind of their ownership, if you will, and especially those that are really interested in careers in environment and energy management, kind of thinking about Miami-Dade schools and how those students were able to participate and do a lot of work during COVID. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, great feedback. We definitely want to expand the students. We have videos that we're going to ask for permission, from after the student forum that happened on May 20th. We met on May 19th, and the student forum video is now posted. So if you didn't get a chance to participate, that video is there. And then afterwards, students were invited to record their own messages, and we need to go through the step of showing them the website and saying, this is what we're talking about, where we would post this, and to get permission. And then we could just build from there. Like David has permissions to add all new material. So we could really just keep adding everything we want the public to know about what's already happening and what students are thinking about for the future. And I did any other feedback on the website? See, David?
Yes, I just wanted to add, if possible, could you add a picture of a school bus on there somewhere? I think since school bus is going to play a big factor in this, if we could just add a school bus, it may help to impact the future.
Yeah, absolutely. David, do you already have, I know you have the one electric bus coming in and installation of the charging station. Are there images of what's actually happening with that electric bus that is provided through I think that was the Volkswagen settlement bus?
Yes, I can check into that and I can provide you with an update tomorrow. Yes, I can.
All right, great. Yeah, you mentioned something I had noted. I was thinking we could get more photos in around the schools that have the solar and the geothermal, and just more images, I think would make it more enjoyable for folks to use.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
And that was Max that put all that together. So he said any feedback, he would be willing to help us and we'll put it together. So yeah, I agree with the school busing and photos and student-friendly portal where they can have access to this. But I think that was his just preview to say, hey, this is what their content mostly.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I like the layout in terms of what's going on, like a glimpse of what's going on in PGCPS around climate. One thing, this is a think about, not specifically a recommendation for the framework right now, but the limited amount I do know about, like constructing right web spaces, it may be something to think about now when the subcommittees really get going, a space and layout, right, for either reports or updates from those different subcommittees, right? And so when, there's already a space sort of for what's going on overall, and that's great because someone can just look at that and get an overview. But then if they wanted to follow like a specific subcommittee and what's happening in transportation or what's happening in education and outreach, then thinking about, at the beginning where that would fit in over time, even though, right, like it may not really be populated right now because we're fielding those teams and that work will come. But just thinking about that now, what space, where would that go and what would that look like? So
Great, thank you. Yeah, great suggestion. And anything else before our final two agenda items? Okay, great. So I accidentally skipped over what.
Hold on for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was listening to you.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay, that's okay.
yes. So unfortunately, Asia couldn't make it today, but Asia Gray did a fantastic job of hosting the forum back on May 20th. And through that, she received an invitation to be the PGCPS student representative to the entire county commission stakeholder meeting tomorrow night. So we are very excited about that recognition. And the students, some of you may know, we through Donald and Michelle and others, we identified this core group of about 50 students who we knew would be interested possibly in moderating the student forum, and 18 of them did. And so we're now sort of using that as sort of like our first email list of students of like, here's opportunities. And, we're going to start their leadership. I mean, the leadership potential is just amazing. We saw it in all of them, 9th through 11th graders, all of them. And they are already super saying, I'm signed up for tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it. And we recommended that they even change their Zoom to add PGCPS student, really be vocal in the breakouts. So we are already seeing the impacts of this work group and how students are taking leadership roles and the respect from our county leaders of our students taking those leadership roles, which is really meaningful to me. So I wanted to give a shout out to Asia. I'm sorry she's not here. Asia and Nanette are now officially alums. They've had their Flowers High School graduation, and I believe they're both, I know Asia's going to Columbia University. I'm forgetting in the moment where Nanette is going, but so proud of them. But that means I'll be working with both of them on who to ask to replace them as the students while they become the alumni part of the work group. And there are obviously so many students who would be great to invite based on how we got to know them in May. So I wanted to provide everyone that update. We do have significant data from the breakouts. Kate has helped us take it to its sort of first level of organization. And then we hope to have the students actually turn it into sort of the digestible report, that really is easy for folks to understand the data that's come out of that. So we do have that as a summer project, and we'll keep moving that forward. And then the final item on our agenda is Kate's report on broader stakeholder outreach. But before we move into that, I just wanted to pause for a second. If anyone wanted to give a reflection on the student forum and and anything you might like to, add about the student piece of our work. All right. Well, Kate, I'll hand it over to you, and then I'll do our adjournment.
Great, let me unmute, thanks. So we've created a pretty simple public questionnaire that we could turn into, doing it on SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or whatever PGCPS finds most appropriate in order to get some general public input throughout this process. So let me see if I could share my screen. We can send the link out just so you can see the content generally, but it's really just asking what stakeholder group that they represent, their zip code, and then asking about some of the primary challenges related to that they want to see addressed in the climate action plan, and ideas that they have on the 7 different topic areas that have been outlined in the resolution, and then how we can best engage them and communicate with them throughout the process. So the purpose of this is really just to provide another outlet for additional input from the public throughout the process. And then we would be looking at this each month and bringing it to the work group and to the subgroups based on topic areas and feedback. So I know we're just showing this to you really quickly, but we'll send this out with everyone and see if you have any input. And then we're working with Valerie to make sure that it goes through the proper channels on the PGCPS process. So just generally speaking, do people think it's a good idea to do a general public questionnaire to get input along the way? Or would you, this doesn't count any additional outreach efforts that we have targeting specific stakeholders. Any feedback on the questionnaire or just the approach in general?
Well, I'll just jump in. I think, every mechanism that we can offer is, the way to go. That, some folks, they like to do it in their own time. They can't make a focus group or community outreach meeting. So I'm really glad we're headed in this direction, and we're at the point where administration is looking at the questionnaire and can advise us on how administration can help us with distribution along with our own efforts through our community-based networks. David?
Yes, I just glanced at it. I didn't have a chance to see it because it was so quick, but that's okay. Was transportation included in there somewhere?
Yes, sir. I'm gonna put the link in the chat so y'all can see a draft of it. And if you have any input, please reach out to Joseph, Pamela, David, or I, and we can make some updates as we finalize it.
All right, Kate, thank you very much.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Kate. That I, just closing remarks and adjournment here. I just want to say I thought today's panel was fantastic, and I learned so new organizations, new resources, new ways, knowledge of who's connecting and who's already working together, and how much everyone is already working with or thinking about students and parents and families. And I really appreciated that emphasis on families, because that is how we are really going to move this in PGCPS, and with the help of our educators. So with that, just call for a motion for us to adjourn. Anyone? And I'll need a second.
Second.
Thank you. So all in favor? Yay.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, we can hang out all day. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll report on our next July meeting. A small group of us decided that we will take August off, and we will put that in writing so that everyone could take a break and regroup for our very busy schedule in the fall. But thanks again, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in July.
Thanks so much, Pamela.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day.
Great
Thank you.
panel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not true.